To boost our defense industrial base, we are also going to resurrect the American shipbuilding industry. We used to make so many ships. We don't make them anymore very much.
Why did President Trump talk about shipbuilding in his address to Congress? Directly after discussing military recruitment and missile defense, Trump announced that he'd be creating a new
Office of Shipbuilding in the White House.
If you look at it in the context of the full speech, you'll notice that Trump doesn't talk about shipbuilding just in terms of American competitiveness or reindustrialization. He frames it as a matter of national security.
What we're really seeing now in relation to shipbuilding is a problem that's been building for a couple of decades. Fighting wars isn't just about warships. Obviously, that's a major part of what we're looking at, but there's a logistics nature to it as well. How does the US maintain its Navy? How does it maintain a commercial fleet? How does it support a war effort if it doesn't have an industrial base to lean on in those times of crisis?
Just how small is the US shipbuilding industrial base? To understand that, we'll need to zoom out to look at the global shipbuilding industry. If you total up all of the commercial shipping capacity built in 2024 by gross tonnage or volume, every container ship, LNG tanker, or cruise liner, the US was responsible for just 0.1% of that. The vast majority of shipbuilding occurred in just 3 countries: Japan, South Korea, and China. China alone made up more than half of the industry in 2024. So this is the challenge at hand. America produces hardly any ships, and most of the world's ships are produced by one of America's largest competitors. I wanted to get a sense for why this is such a big issue, how we got here, and what the US can do about it. I spoke with Matthew Funaiole, an expert on China's maritime domain. His latest CSIS Hidden Reach report, Ship Wars, puts a spotlight on China's shipbuilders and the risks of letting the industry go unchecked. And I want to guide you through the data behind America's shipbuilding shortfall, take a look inside China's shipbuilding empire, and explain what this all means for US national security. So we know that China produces most of the world's shipping capacity, but the true scale of China's shipbuilding industry is almost incomprehensible. Hundreds of shipyards dot China's coastline and waterways, launching a new commercial ship roughly every 9 hours.
One shipbuilder last year, CSIS, China's largest shipbuilder, produced more vessels by tonnage than the entire US industry has since the end of World War II. That's a massive gap, and that gap is raising some real concerns about what does that mean for the United States? What does that mean if the United States is engaged in some type of prolonged conflict with China?
But China hasn't always been so dominant over the industry. At the turn of the century, it was a relatively minor player in global shipbuilding, and Chinese leaders wanted this to change. In 2002, Chinese Premier Zhu Rongji laid out an ambitious goal for China to become the largest shipbuilder in the world by 2015. China achieved this goal by the end of the decade, years ahead of schedule, primarily through massive state support for the industry. One study estimates that between 2006 and 2013, the Chinese government poured over $90 billion of subsidies into the burgeoning shipbuilding industry. This is part of the reason why China was able to maintain a strong output even after the global shipbuilding industry slumped in the early 2010s. China now dwarfs all of its competitors. For reference, the United States hardly even registers on this chart. But China dominates a lot of industries, so why is shipbuilding receiving so much attention in Washington, and why now? For that, we need to take a closer look at what's happening within China's shipyards. If you zoom into the waters surrounding Shanghai, you'll find Chongqing Island. It's a sprawling shipbuilding base home to 2 of China's most productive shipyards, both operated by CSIS. You can see in the satellite image from December 2024 numerous commercial vessels under construction. There's bulk carriers, traditional cargo ships, and LNG tankers. But there's also this, China's Fujian aircraft carrier, which was built here at Chongqing Island. In this one snapshot, there are dozens of naval vessels interspersed with commercial ships. And it's not just Chongqing where we see this pattern. Here at Longshui Island in Guangzhou, you can see a container ship owned by Evergreen, a Taiwanese company, under construction next to a Chinese submarine and an experimental drone carrier. Here's a Singaporean vessel in a dry dock next to a nuclear-powered submarine at Huludao Shipyard. In Dalian Shipyard, a container ship owned by the Swiss company MSC is moored nearby yet another aircraft carrier. We can see this pattern at numerous shipyards across China, all owned and operated by CSIS. CSIS isn't just the biggest commercial shipbuilder in China, it's also one of the largest defense contractors.
CSIS is really the linchpin of China's strategy to leverage military-civil fusion to upgrade its navy while also dominating the commercial shipbuilding sector.
Military-civil fusion, or MCF, is the dark underbelly of the rise of China's shipbuilding industry. At the same time that China was pouring money into shipbuilding, the government was pushing the industry to integrate its military and commercial sectors. In 2017, Xi Jinping elevated MCF to a national strategy, highlighting shipbuilding as a key area for implementation. And the chairman of CSIS at the time called this a mobilization order for the company. Military-civil fusion allows for CSIS and other state-owned enterprises to share revenue, resources, and technology between military and commercial projects. So the money from the foreign ships built in these shipyards helps power China's naval expansion.
What we see is that some of China's most productive shipyards are those dual-use shipyards. Those are the shipyards that are producing both commercial and military hulls. Those shipyards are very productive. They're able to do things at scale, which also means they're very attractive to clients. And those aren't just Chinese clients. They're also foreign clients that are funneling capital and technologies into these shipyards. But what that ends up doing is funneling capital into China's military upgrades. If you look 30 years ago, China's Navy is a modest regional defense force. Now, it's one of the most advanced navies in the world, and it's also the largest navy by fleet size globally. The US still enjoys a number of advantages when it comes to China. The US has been doing this for a long time, and by and large, the Chinese Navy is an untested force.
The US Navy still boasts several major advantages over China's fleet, but there's now growing scrutiny over the forces powering the rapid rise of the Chinese Navy. To help clarify the risks of military-civil fusion in China's shipbuilding industry, Matthew and the Hidden Reach team at CSIS examined the records of over 4,000 ships built in China between 2019 and 2024. The analysis illustrates a new risk landscape of China's shipbuilding industry, across 300 plus shipyards active during this time.
One of the big challenges in tackling this problem is that it's a fairly opaque ecosystem when you're looking at China's shipyards and understanding where's the risk, where does the threat really lie. Around half of China's output is actually coming from just a small subset. Around 10 to 12 shipyards are really the ones that are producing the largest and the most sophisticated vessels. Many of those, worrisomely, are also dual-use shipyards. So they're producing these massive ocean-going commercial vessels, but they're also producing surface combatants and aircraft carriers and other types of assets that really raise questions about what's going on in these places. To make sense of that, we went through and we classified all of China's shipyards into a range from the most risky shipyards, the ones that really foreign companies should try to stay away from as much as possible. Those are tier 1 shipyards. These are ones that are owned by CSIS, in which we have seen sustained evidence of them producing warships, all the way down to what are privately owned shipyards in China that are really only engaged in commercial production. It's really difficult for companies to try and avoid China. They control 50% of the market, and so there is just a gravitational pull that is going to bring companies to their doorstep. If you're going to buy ships from China, what we propose in the report is reduce your risk. Try to reduce the possibility that the money that you're putting into the Chinese economy is inadvertently supporting China's military modernization.
This research has helped to shine a light on China's opaque shipbuilding industry, and it comes at a critical time, as the United States is now pursuing actions to respond to Chinese dominance.
There's now bipartisan support to try to understand and assess why is it that China produces so many vessels and the US is so far behind. And it's something that's rare in DC, where there's fairly bipartisan support and recognition of the challenge.
In addition to standing up an office for shipbuilding in the White House, the administration has also proposed charging fees for all ships built in China to dock at US ports. Meanwhile, on Capitol Hill, a bipartisan group of lawmakers has introduced the Ships for America Act. This bill focuses on targeting specific Chinese shipyards as opposed to all Chinese-built ships, while bolstering the US's own shipbuilding industry and workforce.
The most important thing is to understand that the economic challenge that we face in the commercial shipbuilding sector and the national security challenge that we face from China's dominance in shipbuilding is really one of the same. We have to look at them as one problem because China looks at them as one problem, and our policy solutions need to address them as one problem. Combating China's dual-use shipbuilding strategy requires there to be sustained collaboration between government, between industry, and also bringing our allies and partners in so that we can work together to come up with some type of collective action that pushes back on China and puts the US in a better position.